What's new, crew? I'm Kairu82, and this is Divinity Original Sin 2. Specifically, this is a gameplay review. I know most game reviews cover the entire game, including things like music, story, and dialogue, but this is going to be a little different. I play games for gameplay, and the following is my opinion of the mechanics, controls, and overall feel of Divinity 2. This is not meant to belittle the work of the devs and voice actors involved in other aspects of the game. It's meant to focus on the core of what makes it a game in the first place. Divinity 2 is a turn-based strategy RPG, a lot like XCOM or Wasteland, but without the cover mechanic. It's pretty time-consuming, especially on higher difficulties, as it has a finite number of resources, and enemies don't respawn. This incentivizes a more completionist approach in order to make sure you don't paint yourself into a corner. Ignoring some of the early, easy quests can make it so the later, more important quests are like trying to knock down a brick wall with a toothpick. Luckily, it's easy to avoid this pitfall right from the beginning. There are 4 difficulty settings, the hardest of which has 2 modes for those seeking something even more unforgiving. They're a little out of order here, but we'll start with the easiest one. Story mode is what you'll pick if you just want to get through the game. The biggest advantage here is that you start with a resurrection spell. This is something only available through consumable scrolls in other modes. Explorer mode is the next level of difficulty, which takes away that res spell safety net, followed by classic mode, then tactician. As you raise the difficulty, the enemies get more life, armor, and abilities, but the latter rarely makes a difference. Tactician is the hardest, and it has 2 modes. Regular gives your enemies even more life to work with than they had on classic, and honor mode does the same, but gives you a single save which is erased if your party is killed. Once you've decided on a difficulty, it's time to choose or create your primary character. There are 6 preset characters with their own backstories available, but if you'd prefer, you can customize your own character while still having the option to recruit the others a little later on for a total party of 4. You can make a dwarf, elf, human, or lizard, and each can be a male or female, and living or undead. Undead characters are damaged by healing potions and spells, which can be kind of annoying, but they are healed by poison. They can also pick locks without lockpicks as long as they have a high enough thievery skill. Lizards can dig up buried treasure without a shovel, which is nice early game, but shovels are pretty easy to come by and they're fairly light, so that ability kind of diminishes in value later in the game. Elves can eat dismembered body parts that you find and learn about the deceased, sometimes granting them a permanent skill. Dwarves can squeeze into tight places, but it doesn't come up very much. In fact, I only ever saw it happen once, and it was a tunnel into a room I've already been in. The interface used to customize characters' stats, skills, and abilities is functional but touchy. It's easy to undo all the decisions you've made with one press of the left or right on the D-pad. This is frustrating to say the least, and happens whenever you change the class of the character that you're creating. Luckily, the class only determines the weapons made available in a chest very early on. The skills tied to the class you choose can all be acquired through customization of another class. For example, I could start with a metamorph template and switch all of its skills out for that of a knight. The result would be a character with the abilities of a fighter and a spear in the starting chest. Attributes are pretty self-explanatory, but a couple can be kind of confusing, so I'll give you a quick rundown. Strength increases carry weight and damage done with swords, axes, and clubs. Finesse increases damage done with ranged weapons, as well as daggers and spears. Intelligence boosts magic damage. Constitution gives you 7% more life per point. Keep in mind, though, your HP goes up a little each time you level up. Constitution is just a bonus to your overall HP. Memory determines the number of memory slots you have available. Only skills you have placed in a slot before entering the battle can be used during that fight. Placing them there during a fight will not allow you to use them. Wits gives you a boost to initiative, which determines what order characters and enemies get to attack in. Basically, initiative is speed. Someone with 14 initiative gets to attack before someone with 13 initiative. Combat abilities are split up into 3 types: skill, defense, and weapons. Skill points give a slight boost or perk of some kind, as well as determining what spells you can learn. Defense points give you passive buffs, while weapon points give you a slight boost, but that's basically it. Ranged, for example, only gives you a 5% damage boost and a 1% crit chance with ranged weapons. Huntsman, on the other hand, gives you a 5% high ground damage bonus, plus access to skills that can do things like heal, hit multiple targets, or cripple. It feels like weapon points should draw from another pool. I find that even after I've gotten my favorite skills to an adequate level, I'd rather move on to a second skill than to waste the point on weapon ability. Under civil abilities, you'll find some of the more useful but frustrating aspects of the game. We'll start with bartering. It lowers the price merchants charge for items and increases the amount they will pay for loot that you sell them. While on the surface this seems straight and to the point, it only works for the character that has it, meaning you'll need to transfer all the loot you want to sell over from other characters to maximize profit. Luckily, you can transfer multiple items at once to speed up the process, but it still feels like it could have been avoided if they would have just programmed it so whoever initiates the conversation can sell everything from everyone's inventory. Persuasion is used to talk your way out of bad situations, like when you get caught stealing, and also to get favors from people. This suffers from the same problem as bartering, only the skill of the character in conversation matters. NPCs don't always confront the character you're controlling, or who you consider to be the group leader. Once the dialogue is started, there's no way out. You just have to hope the character being confronted has a high enough persuasion, or that you have the money to bribe your way out. Supposedly, you can clear persuasion checks with crazy high stats, but the option for a strength persuasion check coming up for your fighter isn't a guarantee. Lucky Charm is a little different. It gives you a chance to collect extra loot from containers, usually in form of gold. This ability is actually shared with others. It's not cumulative though, so you'll still want one person to specialize in it, but it doesn't matter who opens the container as long as the person with Lucky Charm is nearby. Telekinesis makes it so you can move objects around regardless of weight. This can be helpful for making barricades or dropping hazardous barrels on opponents. Loremaster lets you identify unidentified items you find. You can pay most merchants to do the same, but it's nice to be able to do it yourself without a trip to town. It does require that you have an identifying glass, but they are non-consumable, so you only need one. Sneaking is basically what it sounds like. You press down on the D-pad and the character you're controlling will hide in a barrel, bush, or rock, and NPCs can't see them unless you walk into their cone of vision, which is clearly marked in red. Party members who are not sneaking will not follow. If you want them to, you'll need to switch to them, make them sneak, and then switch back to the other character. Thievery is one of the best skills in the game, but has some problems. You can only pick someone's pocket once with each of your characters, and only if they have a thievery point. Looking doesn't hurt unless you're seen, and even then you're usually okay. Item weight and value are factored in on top of the thievery level to determine what and how much you can steal at once. After successfully stealing an item, you need to run away immediately. Anything you steal will be marked as stolen. In order to remove that stolen mark, you need to sell the item to a vendor and buy it back right away. If you do it all in one transaction, you can get it back for the price that you sold it for, but if you don't do this and you're caught by the original owner, they're going to cause you trouble. Next are talents. They offer a wide variety of buffs and passive abilities to fit any playstyle. Some, like the Pawn, are a must for a melee build. It allows you to move characters a short distance every turn for free. Others, like Pet Pal, feel pointless overall. Sure, there are a lot of animals to talk to, but they rarely have anything useful to say. Credit where credit is due. Pet Pal is more useful here than it was in the first Divinity. That's just not saying much. You can play this game alone, split screen with a friend, or with up to 3 other people online. With couch co-op, the screen splits vertically and can be locked if you prefer. This prevents it from snapping to full screen when you're near each other. During battle, however, it will go to full screen for each player's turn. There's a lot of walking in this game, and in general that's fine, but sometimes it feels kinda slow, especially over long distances. Luckily, there's a fast travel system that just requires you to find certain statues and points of interest in order to travel back to them. Fast travel is refreshingly quick and smooth with no loading screen and only a few frames of black before reaching your destination. The world map is blocked out at first, but filled in as you explore. It's easy to read and has a few points of interest marked, and you have the option of placing a custom waypoint. Saving is easy and you can do it at any time, even during a fight. Quick save works fine, but has a limited rotation. This limit can be altered in the settings if you'd prefer, otherwise you always have access to a regular save slot as well. You can collect a lot of loot just lying around on the ground. If you're having trouble seeing it, you can click R3 on PS4, and the names of all the items on the screen will show up next to them. Alternatively, you can hold X to search the area around your character, then a list of everything you find will pop up, making it much more manageable. It's way too easy to steal from NPCs by mistake in this game, especially if it's a merchant walking around their own store. Quite often I find myself going to interact with a merchant, then they walk away and my button click goes instead to pick up something they own. They instantly accuse you, and you lose a small amount of favor with them. This can lead to a fight, at which point it's best to load your last save, or you risk killing the merchant, or maybe even the whole town. Party members will not follow you through hazards, save for undead through poison. You'll need to switch to each one individually and walk through it. That, or try to clear the hazard somehow. The journal is used to keep track of quests you pick up throughout the game. When it works, you can select a quest to be your active quest. This usually highlights a point on your map to show you where to go next. However, you'll often find you can't select certain missions, and it doesn't always say why, or even hint at what to do next. There's a lot of dialogue to sift through in Divinity 2, but generally you don't need to read it. Most of the time you can hammer X through the conversation, taking the top dialogue option, and eventually getting through to the take your leave or end line that ends the conversation. Wandering into a fight that you're not ready for is commonplace, as it's unclear what's considered off-limits, so to speak, for your level. It can lead you to feel like you hit a wall, or that you advanced the story too early. All you can do is save often and hope for the best. Recruiting other party members first requires you find them. It's not difficult, but they are scattered over the first town. When you ask them to join you, they'll ask what exactly you're looking for in terms of a teammate. This is a good time to save, because chances are your first choice isn't going to be what you expected. For example, you might be looking for a thief. You could follow the dialogue tree that you think matches those skills, and still end up with someone who can't even steal. It could be 20 hours or more before you see the opportunity to respec your stats, so don't settle for good enough if you can help it. The hotbar is customizable and intuitive. You can place items and memorize skills onto it at any time. Keeping a bedroll on it gives you quick access to fully heal your party outside of battle. One bedroll has unlimited uses. Now on to battle. Fights in this game are long and sometimes tedious, but fun and usually rewarding. Each turn, your character gets 4 action points, or AP. AP is used for movement and skills during your turn, or can be saved for that character's next turn. You can hold up to 6 AP this way. Spells and skills have a cooldown of a varying amount of turns. For example, if you use a skill with a 3-turn cooldown, you can't use that skill again for 3 turns. Defense is split into 2 types, physical and magic. These are depleted as the character is hit with skills of that type. HP cannot be depleted without first bringing one of those defenses down to 0, then hitting the character with that type of damage again. For example, if I hit an enemy with a magic attack until their magic defense is 0, I can then damage their hit points with magic attacks. There are some piercing attacks that ignore armor completely, but these are few and far between. Defense also prevents negative status effects depending on the skill applying them. Regular arrows are infinite, but special arrows are not. Certain special arrows, like Charm and Knockdown, can turn the tide of a battle. There's an elevation mechanic that increases the damage done by characters who have the high ground, while reducing damage they take from those lower than them. The system makes sense, but can be finicky at times. Sometimes you'll have the high ground with one attack, but lose it on the next, or vice versa, even though nobody's moved. In this game, death is permanent unless you have a resurrection scroll. When resurrecting a fallen ally, you first select the scroll, then the ally, and then a place to teleport them to. This is nice for when they're standing in a hazard like fire. Fleeing from battle requires you to be far enough from enemies, then choose a fast travel destination. That character is sent there alone, so you'll still have to get the others out one at a time. There is a talent that lets you run from enemies that are right next to you, but it's usually just faster to load your last save anyway. Experience is given to each party member equally whenever you defeat an enemy. The exception to this is when you kill an unarmored NPC, as they don't give any experience. The number of party members has no effect on the amount of experience gained. I wish I could say I saved the best for last, but this is terrible. The crafting system in this game feels like a well-intentioned afterthought. The game's got a large variety of food and components to work with, but painfully simple recipes, and most items can only be used for one. The satisfaction I get from combining a potato with a knife to get fries is quickly overshadowed by the fact I can't combine meat with bread. I can't even add cheese to pizza. That's right, pizza in this game is bread dough and tomato sauce. Yes, there are some extremely useful recipes available, but most are special arrows or things that take rare materials you might see once or twice your whole playthrough. There are 2 major ways to get recipes here. You can either guess at it and get lucky, or find crafting bibles that give you a few of a certain kind of recipe. That about wraps up most of the mechanics and gameplay in Divinity 2. If you can think of any more, stick them in the comments below and, have a little conversation with other people watching this, see what they think. Anyway, I love this game. I can't recommend it enough. You just try it, It's got some problems, but what doesn't? Hopefully I covered most of them, so you at least won't be surprised by it. Anyway, thank you so much for watching. I really appreciate it. If you liked it, hit that like button. subscribe for more, because, this is my first review thing, but I might make more. I don't know. This is a lot of work. I'm doing this in SHAREfactory. Oh my god. Okay, I need an upgrade. Anyway, thanks again. I'll see you in the next video.